Alright, so this is a little bit of an update on my previous, this is taking place right after, and you can see that in the previous video, I noticed that my action bars, they're a little bit all over the place, so I'm going to present to you a custom setup for ops interface, and also for your action bars. I need to get my friend out of there. I'm using him for his example. I pulled one of my guildies out, and then I'll show you the everything else. I'm also gonna talk about stats in this video. I am not the most geared PvP character. I'll be the first to DPS guy. My bad. The most primary stats for a PvE DPS. I'm going to show braces, for example. A lot of the stats are critical rating. For, melee. It has a big effect for increasing the damage dealt, and also for critical chance. Accuracy is also extremely important because it'll make it so that you miss much less, and it will reduce armor when it goes above 100%. It'll do some... Yeah, it reduces their defense after 100%. And that's a little bit on stats. For offhand, I always put a power crystal in. Of course, it doesn't come with it, and at the moment I have a 186. I've been focusing a lot on PvP gear. But this is the basic gear. I'm still gearing, as you can see. So, let me see if he did it. Alright, so in the meantime, until he leaves his phase, we're going to start on the action bars. To customize the action bars, you simply do this. You just go to interface editor, and as you can see below, I'm going to give it a custom name and then save it, of course, when I'm done. Okay. That's what he was doing. I'm going to disable the basic stuff so far, and kind of focus on what's below. Shan form is not technically needed on the action bar, so I'm taking that off. And let's move stuff out of the way. I'm going to disable the bottom one as well, so I can focus on the primary moves in the first action bar. As you see, it's going to look odd for a moment, and this is a way of setting up your abilities. Take it apart, just disable all moves off there. Alright, so as you can see, it's all clear. And of course, as a DPS, you want to kind of set yourself up in a way that you can view more of the fight. So, do as I do. And move your action bar to the bottom. Clearly, I'm a 60, so I'm going to get rid of this. The experience bar, in my opinion, is no longer needed. Now, you want to put it as far down as possible. You want a kind of a view of the battlefield. And move your interface as well. It's going to bother me for a bit because it's never going to be perfectly symmetrical. But set it up right, and it should be great. Some people like to lower the scale a bit. It kind of lowers the size so that it's not too much of a biggie. And then on top of that, That should work. Combat state in the middle. I'm going to disable tutorials. I never got around to do that. Now, there we go. We got a little bit of a setup. This is for you lobies who want to see what it's like first. Kind of a little bit of a setup. And as you can see, if I were to zoom out, I got a bit of a better view of the battlefield. Now, let's put primary moves on first. I'm going to start with Assault. I always do. And let's see. What do I start with next? Now, I want to build up Rage. Of course, that's your main stat, as everyone knows. And clearly, you're going to need to build it up. Sundering Assault is the way to build it up. It gives me about 5 Rage. It's a hitting move. We'll add the other one, in Rage, later on to the other action bar since it's not a damaging move. Impale is an extremely important move to your rotation, as I said in the previous video. If you want to learn a bit about it, watch the previous one, and it will show you a rotation, a small rotation. I'm going to perform it again for a little bit for you while we're in here. Next, Ravage. Ravage comes before Shatter because Shatter, as you saw in the previous video, resets the cooldown on Ravage. And here we go. Bam. And that's the basic setup. That's what you want. So what do you think? Next is, of course, you got to get in the fight immediately. Force charge. Simple as that. This is the way I kind of perform it. It's a little bit different. Of course, you can set yourself up in your own way. Like, let's say, get rid of Assault and then just do the other moves. But Assault helps you generate Rage, so I always do it 1 in case I have no other moves. I tend to be on cooldowns a lot. I'll show you in some time. Normally I do tank though. Now, that's the basic setup. These are the primary moves. Like, the basic setup, bam. And then resets the cooldown. As you can see, I build up, and I still have a lot of Rage. Bam. Now, of course, you got to think, there's another important thing. It's useful for both PvP and PvE. There's a point on your discipline, and it's called Bloodbath. Read on it and see what it says. You get it at 12. Smash and Vengeful Slam. Spread your bleed effects onto all targets they damage. If at least one of the targets is already affected by your bleeds, it spreads. In addition, Sweeping Slash deals 25% more damage to bleeding targets. So, at 57, you get this move, Vengeful Slam. It's a replacement for Smash. It does more damage. It's kind of like an atomic bomb, basically, at times. I'll show you. Bam. Now, if you're surrounded by a group of enemies, whether it be PvP and PvE, force charge in, build up your Rage, Impale, and then Vengeful Slam. Simple as that. You'll spread your bleed effects to all your enemies and take them out. Now, further in, that's your primary moves. That's what I use constantly all the time. Where could I go from there? Next, I don't really require, actually, Saber Throw is pretty important. Great for PvP if you have the immobilizing effect. Good to start out the fight, you know, throw it out, and it generates some Rage. Force charge in, bleed effect, Ravage. As you can see, my bleed effect's still on. Shatter also does a bleed effect of its own, if you want to spread. You build both on there, and he does a double bleed effect. And then spread them both to all your enemies. So if you manage to put the shatter bleed effect and the impale bleed effect on your enemy as well, Vengeful Slam will spread them both and bleed out all your enemies. Simple as that. That's why juggernauts, if they properly do their DPS, they can be very dominative. Those are the primary most important moves I know at the moment. After that point, Chilling Scream can be useful if you're in PvP. Might as well have that. And Intimidating Roar to stun all your enemies. With a Force Choke. Force Choke can be good to keep your enemy still if it's like one of those irritating Vanguard. Ah, I forgot an important one. Vicious Throw. At some point during a fight, you're going to notice that Vicious Throw is meant normally to... oh, see, it appeared. Vicious Throw is mainly to finish off your enemy during the middle of a fight, but Vicious Throw can be used as a Vengeance Juggernaut anytime at all. And you'll see it will appear again at some point. Like that. Chilling Scream will slow all enemies around you within 8 meters, and Intimidating Roar will stun everyone around you. Simple as that. Great rotation. Now, I'm going to adjust this here. It's a little bit bothering me. Combat state doesn't necessarily matter to me. I don't know what it's used for anyway. Try to keep it a little bit close. Better. Now to adjust buffs. And debuffs. Enemy taskbar. Of course, castbar, you always want to see what your enemy is casting. Might come in handy to interrupt. And on top of that, if I can find it, one moment. Try and move this over. Ah, there we go. There's your task cast bar. Important to keep. Kind of watch over what moves you're doing. I don't really care much for buffs. It's not too much of a matter. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. My personal preference, so I have more room for cast bar. Watch what's going on. Now, am I missing anything? Alright, good. Alright, so debuffs aren't appearing. Next, defenses. I'd hotkey it for you. I'm actually gonna try hotkeying it myself. I like using the 1 through equal sign for my hitting moves, but I'm also gonna set up something right now for defenses. I suggest trying. Well, first let me convert this over. Before we get to that, let's work on the interface. You're a DPS, you know, you're in PvE, PvP. You don't really care too much for the health of the group. You want it out of the way. So, do as I do. Move it here. Take out group. And then put it along the side. That's alpha. Scale it down. Too far. Enough that you can see it. Perfect. Show health text. How do I feel about this setup? Move my companion over. Most of the time I'm in PvP or PvE, so I don't really quite often use the companions. I enable them when I'm questing, of course. Now, this is ideal, what I would use. Simple. You can kind of get the idea of who's at low health. You know, slightly visible, but it's not the main importance. It's more of a test run. I don't normally do that for my setup, but I've been trying to. Find your opinion and comment it in the video on what you think I should do about it. What you do personally. And maybe we can come up with something great for DPS. Now, as I was saying, defenses. So far, as you can see, it's a decent setup, but I don't have any defenses down. What if I get attacked? Now, let's work on that. Quick bar 2. We're going to enable. I'm going to adjust it in a second. As you can see, it's crossing over and it's being quite an irritant at the moment. But once I'm done, here we go. Defenses. We'll start activating them now. Of course, you know, I did forget something, and I think I'm going to place it on here, since I have room. Disruption. Of course, it's very important to disrupt your enemies. Saber Ward, the basic defense, increasing melee and range defenses by 50% and absorbing 25% of the damage taken from force and tech attacks. Very useful at times. Now, there's an incredibly useful defense as well, and that is enraged defense. Endure Pain is here. I'll explain them once I get them down. This is a bit more of a rage increaser in case I need it. I don't often need it, so here we go. That's most of the defenses just right there alone, I believe. What am I forgetting? I know I'm forgetting one thing. I'll place Intercede down to jump to my healers. I'd always, if you're in a war zone, place a find out who the healer is, place a focus on him. It's greatly useful. Taunts to drop down. It reduces damage. Okay. Here, let me show you why I bring taunts into PvP. At the end, it says, also causes affected players, targets, to deal 30% less damage for 6 seconds when attacking anyone else other than you. It's greatly useful to assist, and it also works as an aggro drop if you're not in Suresu form. It's pretty great. Taunt also does the same thing, but for an individual. Saber Reflect, another one. And that's mostly it, I believe. Yeah, it's it. Occasionally, I know some of you favor switching between Suresu and Shien. I know quite a few juggernauts who do that. So if you wish to do that, as you can see, I have room below. So I'm going to put down Suresu form. And Shien. As you can see there, it'd be quite useful. Now to hotkey it. Preferences, key bindings. Now, as you can see, I use those quite often. I gotta get used to this. I don't keys myself, but there are options under key bindings. I have it to where I want ideally. So a little jump during the fight. That was quite interesting. And then spread the bleed. Reset Ravage. And bam! You got it again. If you run low, like I just did, look at that. Back down to full. He starts running away. Pop Chilling Scream. And Shatter. Vicious Throw. Now, disruption is extremely important, and I'm going to add a special key right now just for disruption. I'm going to find something right now. What did I not use? Something simple. Ah, there we go. So whenever I need to disrupt, I just simply click Q. Simple as that. For Enrage, I'm going to add another one, and yeah, I don't really need that. So I'm going to use So, whenever I want to start up the fight, I can quickly click E, Saber Throw, Force Charge, Impale, Ravage, Vicious Throw, Shatter, Ravage, Impale, that, and Vengeance Flam, Shatter. As you can see, it's a constant rotation. Okay, let's say he's casting a move. Bam. Vicious Throw. And as you can see, ideal setup. Now, comment below on how you feel. And that is all, folks.